Hello everyone, Luciano Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers. Today is December the 10th. We are at 12:32 Rio de Janeiro time. We are starting one more live stream. As usual, if you are here live with us, you have a priority to suggest topics of your interest to be discussed. We're going to discuss in general lines. A heads up, I cannot give you specific legal advisory during a live stream, but I can discuss, terms and realities and facts that are in public domain surrounding the topic at hand. All right, so don't be shy. Type your topics of your interest here in the chat window, and we're gonna take a look at the news, see what's going on in Brazil. And here the main headline, the anatomy of a settlement seeking less prison time for President Jair Bolsonaro. So there was a voting session in Congress, and they passed a bill to reduce jail time for former President Jair Bolsonaro. If I'm not mistaken, it was something like 27 plus years of prison time for a plan to take over government, despite President Lula winning the election, and it was 27 years. Now there was a bill, and this bill is not only addressing President Bolsonaro's prison time, but is also addressing pretty much everyone else who participated in the so-called coup attempt in Brazil. Just remember that it looks like there was some level of planning, of discussion. I think they even found a document, but there was zero steps towards implementation of such plan. There was a large number of ordinary people who, just like in the United States, they were invading like public buildings in Brasilia, the capital of Brazil. So this bill is going to reduce, I believe, something like 50% of the prison time for everyone, not just like President Bolsonaro, right? And it sounds to me that it is a good bill. Because if he reduces by 50%, it means like his prison time would be reduced from 27 to something like 13.5 years. And just for the sake of comparison, there is a very famous crime case showing on Netflix as you speak. And if you are at home, like, you could even take a look at this now. Is a case about this lady here, Elise Matsunaga. She was found guilty after shooting her husband and dismembered his body, right? Like, there is a thesis that she actually started dismembering his husband, while he was still alive, right? So pretty shocking crime, and she was found guilty and sentenced to 16 years in jail, right? So 27 years for a coup attempt that you couldn't find a single evidence of implementation for the coup, and then you compare to a lady who dismembered her husband, potentially alive, for 16 years. I think it is a good measure, the reduction in prison time, not only for President Bolsonaro, but for pretty much everyone else involved in those protests framed as a coup attempt. And by the way, this is we call it, like in Brazil, we don't call justice, we call minister, right? Like, so this is Minister Alexandre de Moraes, the arch enemy of President Bolsonaro. He is the one who orchestrated or who led the panel and the judgments and so on. And there is a clear alignment between this justice and the left side of the aisle. I'm not saying that President Bolsonaro shouldn't have been judged. I think there was enough elements, to find him guilty. But on the other hand, it's clear that there is an overreach by the current Brazilian Supreme Court, and this overreaching is led by this specific minister, if you will. All right. So these are the news. Again, we spoke about this case here as well. This gentleman here, like he was the founder of Banco Master, a bank that went under, like recently, like a month ago or something like this. And this is like, big news because in Brazil, banks are highly regulated, much more regulated than they are in the United States. And therefore, whenever a bank goes under in Brazil, it's such a big news, right? It doesn't compare to the United States. United States, if you Google right now which banks went under, I guarantee you're going to find at least a couple of banks that filed for bankruptcy, from last month to this month, right? So in Brazil, whenever that happens, it's such a big deal that you're going to see recurring news about that on the newspapers. Okay, I think that's it. Let's see what else. We see here President Trump's administration, and they're talking about the font. I'm not sure if you read about it, right? It looks like under President Biden, there was a change from Times New Roman to, I don't know if it's Calibri or Colibri. It is the new font type from Microsoft. So President Biden's administration said, you know what, we're gonna change the standard font type being used by the U.S. Federal Administration to this one. And now, Secretary Rubio was, letting people know that the federal government is going back to Times New Roman, right? And that's the news over here. And like and like I share over here, like Brazilians, they like to follow what's going on in the United States, and therefore that's news enough to be shown on the front page of our newspapers. All right, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the participation so far. I don't see any participations in the chat window so far. So I'm gonna ask you for a favor. If you hear me okay, if you see me okay, please type something in the chat window so I know the chat window is not frozen. Okay, it does happen sometime, rarely, but it happened before that people would type something and it would not show. It would not show on my chat window. And yes, it looks like it is working. I see here there is a first message. Let's take a look. And this is BB. Welcome back, BB. BB is saying, Oi. I remember you mentioned that if a person chooses the retirement and go for it, they would be subject to worldwide income taxes. BB, so the retirement residency in Brazil, or the digital nomad and any type of temporary residency, they are not going to trigger any tax consequences, okay? But what is going to catch you, BB, is the fact that you most probably will stay in Brazil for over 183 days in any given 12 months. And this 12 months is not a calendar year, is a moving bracket trying to catch you. And as soon as you exceed 183 days, meaning 184, and by the way, it doesn't need to be consecutive, guess what? Tax residency is going to catch you. But again, it's not catching you because of the retirement. It's not catching you because of digital nomad. It is catching you because the timeline in Brazil. All right, BB. So again, retirement track, digital nomads, they do not cause tax residency. What's going to cause tax residency typically, right? There are other circumstances, but typically it's going to be either exceeding 183 days in the country in a period of 12 months, rolling period, and it could be consecutive or not. That's, one of the most common circumstances. The second one, if you acquire a residency in Brazil of permanent character, right? So if you have like a Brazilian spouse and you apply for residency, typically you get residency for an undetermined period of time, which is the fancy way of saying permanent residency. As soon as you get the residency, guess what? Then yes, you're going to be a tax resident on the spot. Matt Gaines, boa tarde, Dr. Oliveira. Boa tarde, Matt. Good to see you here, and I hope Adrian as well. Marisa Navas, boa tarde, Dr. Luciano. Estamos atentos à sua live. Bom vê-los aqui. Marisa, Ricardo, thank you for your support in Portugal, and thank you for attending our live stream. Matt, are income tax filings due in Brazil on April? As in the United States? Matt, that's a good question. They are actually due in May, all right? So that helps a little bit with the filing because if you think about it, like typically you get your income, right? Or typically our clients get their income from the United States, so they end up filing in April, and then they're gonna handle their filings in Brazil in May. Meaning that they're going to have everything, all the books ready from the United States to be used in Brazil, and potentially, right, because that doesn't always happen, but potentially they could apply federal taxes paid in the United States as a credit to offset their liability in Brazil for taxes. Okay, so that works pretty well. I don't think that was done on purpose. I think it is more like a good coincidence, right? That Brazil handles tax filing a little bit later than the United States. All right, what else do we have over here? Okay, so let's let's share about our partner, Remax Nomad States. I'm sure everyone knows about Remax. Remax is the largest real estate chain in the world, and this is specifically an agency in Leblon, Rio de Janeiro, and they actually work across the country. They are currently working with several clients of ours. Okay, some of our clients they got in touch with Remax Nomad States after hiring us, and others, very interesting. They first hired Remax Nomad States and then learned about our services and end up becoming a client as well. But pretty good match for for citizens, fluent English. They do understand the basics, right? Like of the additional required steps, for foreign citizens acquiring property in Brazil. All right, we have a follow-up question from BB. So what is the benefit of obtaining a retirement visa if I'm only allowed to stay as long as a tourist visa without being taxed? BB, so typically, right, and that's not only in Brazil, that's pretty much in every single major country, right? Like, because there are minor countries in which like they do have different rules, but if you're talking about Brazil, if you're talking about the United States, if you're talking about Europe, okay, the taxation is typically separate from immigration. So here, what you're getting from the immigration is that you can stay in Brazil, right? So if you don't have something like the retirement visa or digital nomad, you cannot stay in Brazil over 180 days no matter what, right? So here the upside is that yes, you can stay in Brazil for as long as you want, and the downside is that you're gonna need to pay taxes. But again, BB, for any major country, this is actually the approach, right? Like I mean, they're giving you a break on allowing you to stay in the country. They are not allowing you to stay in the country for free, right? There is no such a thing. If you are a resident in a country, you need to pay taxes over there. That's pretty standard across the board. Rony Dio, bom dia, Rony. It has been a while. Good to see you over here. Let's see what else we have. Let's take a look at something from our backlog. Purchasing an off-plan apartment in Brazil, right? Like, I mean, what are your advices, right? So, I actually picked this question because we are writing a specific guide on buying off-plan properties in Brazil, right? Like this is pretty common for foreign citizens, and it works like a foreign citizen is visiting Rio de Janeiro or visiting Fortaleza, Recife, Salvador, whatever city you think of. And when they are visiting the city, they happen to take a look at an off-plan apartment, maybe because they are walking by and, they have like a really nice sales stand with salespeople, and sometimes they serve champagne and some cocktail and food and so on, and then they have some nice mock-ups of the buildings, of the conveniences, and then when you ask about the price, typically if you're coming from a stronger economy like the United States or Europe, you're gonna find that the price is pretty interesting, right? And then, from that moment on, this idea of acquiring a property in Brazil is going to develop. Okay, so that's what I see happening, many times. And, we are writing a guide because, the questions, they are typically repetitive, right? But the first question is like, what do I do to make sure I'm not deceived, right? And one concern I have nowadays, right, like because in the past, basically we would say, listen, stick to the largest builders, and you're probably on the safer side, right? Never 100% guaranteed. I like to say, if there is a global war, I think 90% of the developers, they are going to go in Brazil, right? They are going to go bankrupt, and you're going to, lose your shirt, all right? So never guaranteed, but in the past, I would say work with the largest developers, and unless something crazy happens, you should be good, right? Nowadays, we have a new phenomena, and unfortunately, scammers, right? Like fraudsters in Brazil, they're super creative, right? Like, creativity in Brazil is across the board. And unfortunately, thieves and bad actors, they are as creative as the other part of the population. So what they are doing nowadays, like they are infiltrating the sales stands, meaning that, even if you go to a particular site, and this site is run by a major developer, a big name, either in São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro. Typically, you're gonna see over there, I don't know, you could easily find like 50 different people, and out of these 50 people, 30 potentially would be realtors, basically trying to sell the units to whoever they can, reach. And unfortunately, now it's becoming more common that among those people, just because there is such a large number and a high rotation of these people, now you see like, fraudsters infiltrating this, sales stands. And here's the problem. Like if you take this card from the fraudster who happens to not to be associated with the vendor, and if you send the money later on to this fraudster, then guess what? Like you don't have a recourse, right? You could say, you know what, like I found this person in the developer site, like they should be responsible for that. But then you're going to be entangled in a lawsuit. Like, I mean, I guarantee there is a bunch of lawsuits exactly because facts like this, right? So the first suggestion I give you is like spend the money, and you don't need to hire us. You can hire, another attorney. Sometimes, if you speak Portuguese, if you are in a smaller town, and you find a good attorney, maybe it's a good match. Make sure that an attorney is reviewing the contract and is reviewing the development, and it's reviewing where you're sending your money to, right? So if you just do those things alone, you're going to be far ahead in terms of care when compared to other buyers, okay? So that's my first recommendation. Due diligence, don't sign a document, don't send money before having the paperwork for the development reviewed. The second one, it is a strategy that I use myself whenever buying off-plan properties, is to pace the payments, right? Many people, they say, well, like I'm so excited, I got a huge discount, like they're gonna give me a 20% price break if I prepay this thing in advance, right? And my take on it, the way I handle investment in off-plan properties is exactly the opposite. I'm not that concerned with the discount. I'm more concerned about paying as little as possible during the construction stage. Because if something, goes wrong, like if this development doesn't go ahead for some reason, my loss is going to be limited in size. Right now, if you are prepaying this whole thing, guess what? You're going to lose your shirt. So my typical strategy is like, yes, try to get some discount. And by the way, they typically have a built-in fat in the price, so they can give you a discount even if you're not prepaying this thing, right? So get your discount, but try to pay as little as possible. And then naturally, once the property is ready, they are not going to hand you the keys unless the developer is fully paid, all right? And then if you are a foreign citizen, remember, getting a mortgage in Brazil, difficult for most people. So you may need to have the balance to pay off the full price, or you may want to try to get a loan in your country of residence to pay off the balance for the property and get the apartment for your use. Okay, so these are just some of the tips we have on off-plan apartments in Brazil. Matt Gaines, does your firm provide tax filing services once clients relocate to Brazil, or do you have recommendations for firms that provide tax filing services? Seems like taxes will be very complicated. Matt, yes, we do provide tax filing services. Eventually, right, or in the case of a very complex tax situation, we may send you to a colleague of ours who is a tax attorney. But for most of our clients, yes, we are able to file their taxes in Brazil and to read their tax statements from the United States without an issue. All right, so yes, we do provide the service. With the caveat that for more complex situations, sometimes we're going to refer you out. Okay, Matt, and I think yes, taxes, they can be complex and convoluted, but just like in the United States, right? Like once you handle things, stage by stage, eventually you get a tax filing done in Brazil in a compliant way. All right, Mr. West Village. Good morning, Dr. Oliveira. Is the Brazil retirement visa the same as a temporary visa? All right, welcome, Mr. West Village. So, like we don't have those categories really well defined in our immigration framework. But if you want to qualify the retirement visa, yes, that would be temporary, right? Because it doesn't have a permanent nature. And typically, West Village, it works like this. If you are in the United States and you apply for a retirement visa, you're going to get a visa for 2 years. After you enter Brazil, you're going to need to convert that visa into a residency. And the residency is going to be for 2 years, right? And then after those 2 years, which naturally is a temporary residency because 2 years is a certain number of years, potentially you can renew under the prazo indeterminado, meaning, like an undetermined limit of time, which is a fancy way that Brazil uses nowadays to say permanent residency, right? And the reason why Brazil wants to use this fancy way of saying permanent is because they feel that if they tell you it's permanent, they cannot take away, right? Look at that, like very conscious about the name, right? So they changed this name back in 2017 to basically say, you know what, I'm allowing you to stay here, pretty much on an undetermined basis, meaning, on a permanent basis, but I'm not going to say permanent because if you do something wrong or if you don't follow the specific requirements for that track that you are using, I may want to take away your residency, okay? So yes, it starts with this temporary nature, and then after a couple of years, in theory, you can renew with a more permanent nature, as long as you understand that, permanent nowadays, is not exactly how the Brazilian immigration refers to permanent residency, if you will. All right, BB, will your firm help determine how much taxes I would have to pay if I have the retirement visa and stayed longer? Are taxes determined based on my retirement income or my worldwide income? Good questions, BB. Yes. Typically, if you need a study, right, like determining how much you're going to need to pay, this is typically, at least for this year, right, we are referring out to a colleague of ours. The only thing he does is tax planning and tax, strategies. So he's a better match for, planning and questions and this type of stuff. We're planning to expand our tax services next year. So potentially we could also be providing this as a service. Naturally, this is not within the scope of our immigration service. That would be something separate. And taxes are going to be on your worldwide income, not only on your retirement income, right? So if you have, for instance, investment in stocks, if you have like funds in Vanguard, if you're getting income from Bitcoin investments, if you have an LLC, every single source of income will be taxed in Brazil. But remember, right, before, and I know it sounds harsh, even though, like I said, BB, it is just exactly how Portugal or the United States would treat you, right? And but there is also this concept of applying a credit for federal taxes that you paid in the country of origin for the income, right? So if you're getting your income, again, from the United States and you're paying federal taxes over there, not state or city, right? The federal taxes, in theory, your accountant in Brazil would be able to apply those federal taxes or part of them, right? Not necessarily everything, but part of them, they should be applied as a credit to offset your tax liability in Brazil. All right, let's move to a second question from our backlog. All right, if I am planning for an immigration procedure in Brazil, let's say the digital nomad, Can I start ahead of time, or do I need to be in Brazil to take care of things, right? So the idea here, I think it's more like about the planning, about the timeline, and I think this is gonna happen not only for the digital nomad or the retirement track, but pretty much for every single immigration procedure that you would have in Brazil. Yes, you will start this journey before leaving your country of origin, okay? And some of the documents you can, start working on them way ahead of time. For instance, if you have like a Brazilian spouse and you live in the United States, you must have your marriage certificate recorded in Brazil, okay? Otherwise, you're not going to be able to secure resident benefits for your spouse. So this is something that you could typically take care of, like 1 or 2 years ahead of time, ideally right after the marriage, right? But that's not how it works for most people. They are busy. They don't think about this thing ahead of time. So if you are in this journey, this is something you can, handle right away. Other things like, the Brazilian or your birth certificate, that's another thing you can typically handle ahead of time. You need to get an apostilled version of your birth certificate. And some things you need to be more careful about how ahead of time you're going to handle, such as the background check, right? Like the background check, whenever you are filing in Brazil or presenting this document to the authorities, it cannot be older than 90 days. So, in other words, if you try to handle the background check way ahead of time, you may end up, with a document that is not going to do any good, right? So, I think the idea here is to have a proper schedule for your journey. Here at the firm, we use a platform in which you can see the different requirements, and then you can also take care of them over time. And working with our analyst, who's gonna keep this board updated. There are colors that we use, like once a specific requirement is taken care of, it becomes green. Others, they are like in yellow. If there is something serious that's precluding your case to proceed as it should, we're going to have like in red. But the bottom line here is that, planning is key for a smooth immigration procedure in Brazil. All right, let's take a look at the chat window. It looks like we don't have anything new for now. Remember, if you are here with us, I would appreciate if you could like our live stream. That helps our firm, our business, and it also helps other people just like you to find this content. So yes, I would appreciate if you could like the live stream. Donna Mendoza. Donna, so good to see you over here. It has been a while. Good day to you. I just returned from America, running from the cold to be greeted with rain. Oh, there you go, Donna. But, now it's like summertime in Brazil, right? So you're going to have a blast. You're not going to, suffer with the intense winter in the United States, right, Donna? And yes, I guess, a rain is still inevitable, but, let us know about your plans, right? Like, are you planning any trips? What you're planning for, this end of year, if you will. All right. Okay, let's take a look at our backlog. All right, this one, just to summarize, is actually a really long message, but just summarizing: choice of destination in Brazil, right? Recommendations. All right, so, I never recommend a specific area of Brazil. We typically try to understand what you're looking for, and then based on what you're looking for, some areas they are going to represent uh, uh, matches that are better than others. Okay, so there are no single destinations in Brazil. Brazil has continental dimensions, so many different, states, geographies, climates, right? So my recommendation is actually to take your time. If you are, like building a second life in another country, I think you should allocate some time to try different areas out. Okay, so if you're coming to Brazil, you may, try the south of Brazil, like Florianopolis. There are many other amazing cities in the south of Brazil. You can try the big ones, maybe, spend a few days in São Paulo, a few days in Rio de Janeiro. I also think it is a good idea for you to try the northeast of Brazil. The northeast, is is much more affordable than typically the south, and is more like a developing area, right? Like São Paulo and Rio, they're pretty settled. So when you try to buy, properties, they're going to be on the higher side. Now, in the Northeast, there is a lot of land available. So typically, real estate is going to be much cheaper. Cost of life is going to be cheaper as well. So Northeast, I think it's also a very good destination for you to try out. Something that's not very common, the north of Brazil, right? The north of Brazil, it has the Amazon jungle, but it's not just the Amazon jungle, right? Like, of course, you have a whole number of cities around the Amazon jungle. We have Manaus, okay? You have Belém. Manaus and Belém, they are the capitals of the state of Amazonas, Manaus. And then you have the capital of the state of Pará, which is Belém, right? And they are, big cities with access to, like such an interesting environment, right? Like, I mean, you can really have a blast. I mean, it feels like a different planet when you are, in those states, right? Like, and you have access to big cities with all the, conveniences we may want, and at the same time, you're just like a couple of hours from untouched nature. So it's a pretty interesting experience. You probably heard about Rio Amazonas, right? Like I think it's the largest river on Earth, right? The first time I saw it, like I couldn't believe, because to cross from one margin to the other, it took us like 1 hour on a speedboat. So like the dimensions of the Amazon jungle, rivers and natural occurrences, they are just like, out of this world, right? So that's going to be interesting to some of you as well. So in other words, not a single destination, but instead of a single destination, more like, a recommendation that you try different things to see what works best for you. Okay, let's see what else we have. All right, I see we have an interesting number of people, so don't be shy. Let us know your topic of your interest over here so we can have it discussed. All right, something else you may want to enter in the chat window. If you have any suggestions for our, live sessions to be more interesting, let me know. One of the suggestions I heard in the past, it was, listen, sometimes I'm not just interested in legal aspects of my journey. If, whenever I actually go and book a consultation with your firm, but I'm actually interested in your perspectives of Brazil from a foreign citizen's perspective, right? Like, so there was a really nice piece of feedback, and that's why nowadays, whenever I have an opportunity to set aside legal stuff and talk about Brazil more in general lines, I will. I try not to dwell on political issues too much because naturally there is a lot of polarization in the United States, there is polarization in Brazil, there is polarization in Portugal, and I don't want to alienate part of our audience, right? And I am actually personally, right? Like I feel like both sides of the aisle, they have, good things that combined are key for the development of a country, right? But anyhow, I try to stay away from politics, but there are so many other things we can discuss about business, about culture, about relationships, right? About your journey in Brazil as a foreign citizen. So again, this is your time. Let me know what you want to discuss, and we're gonna discuss live over here. Donna, I have no plans. Where will you be spending the holidays? Thank you for asking, Donna. I'm gonna be in Fortaleza, right? Ceará. I'm gonna be in Fortaleza, Ceará, and then after the New Year's Eve, I'm gonna go to Rio de Janeiro, right? Our firm has, we typically have a meeting across the offices at the beginning of January, right? Like, I mean, other firms, they typically do like an end of year type of meeting. And what I think about those end of year meetings is that, like sometimes it's difficult for you to find a place because pretty much everyone else is doing the same. So places are full, difficult to book. They are expensive, right? And it also makes difficult for us to move our people across the cities, right? Just because airfare is expensive as well. So we're gonna have our meeting is gonna be our firm's meeting this year is gonna be in Rio de Janeiro. I think it's on January the 9th, and we're gonna be meeting everyone is gonna be meeting in Rio de Janeiro. We're still picking the destination. All right. If we have any friends in Rio de Janeiro around that time, let us know. And that's that's something I'm gonna start to share. Thank you for asking, Donna. You see, like when you participate together, we have some ideas. And I'm going to invite for any of our existing clients, right? Not everyone, but our existing clients, maybe to join us for this celebration, right? And we're going to be picking a nice place. We are considering, I'm not sure, Donna, if you know about Rio de Janeiro, different locations. There is one location I like a lot. It's a community by Leblon, right? By Leblon. So the place is called Bar da Laje. It's a bar, it's more like a nice combination of a music house with a restaurant with amazing views of the south of Rio de Janeiro, like the beaches, the hills. It's an amazing location. So this is Bar da Laje. That's one of the places we are thinking about. The other one is in Santa Teresa, right? Like Santa Teresa is a super historical, traditional neighborhood in Rio de Janeiro. It's not by the beach, by the way. It's more like, by downtown of Rio de Janeiro. And I also love Santa Teresa. They have the bondinhos, right? Those very old, I don't know how to translate in English. Maybe you guys can help me out here, but it is one of those. It's not a bus. It's going to run on electricity, and it goes like on rails, right? So I don't know, an electric monorail, but in Brazil we call it bondinho. They're super typical, and the streets, they are like, I don't know, from 300 years ago. It's just amazing, Santa Teresa. And they do have also this combination of a music hall with a restaurant, everything extremely typical of the Rio de Janeiro culture, right? So we're thinking about Santa Teresa, or we're thinking about this community by Leblon. Whenever I say community, that's how we Brazilians we talk about those. Some people they call it slums, but we try to be respectful and say communities in a sense that they are communities, right? It does not matter the type of constructions that they have over there, and they have, it's such an interesting mix. You see apartments, you see houses, yes, you see some very basic and rudimentary, homes, but it is such a nice combination of people, music, food, visitors, locals is just a blast, right? So that's gonna be in January the 9th. If you happen to be around, let us know and we can share the details with you. Matt Gaines, have you spent much time in Porto Alegre? What is your opinion of that area? Matt, so Porto Alegre is, I'm sure you know, but sharing with the others, is the capital of the state of Rio Grande do Sul, which is the most extreme state to the south, right? And by the way, maybe we have other people over here in our live stream who are living in the area, right? Not exactly in Porto Alegre, but in the extreme south of Brazil. And listen, there is a reason why people like Rio Grande do Sul. It's typically an area that is, safer than Brazil in average. You also have, for being in a capital, access to pretty much any convenience you may think of. The major downside, and that's in my personal opinion, is the code. Matt, is the code because normally in like Santa Catarina, in Rio Grande do Sul, like those two most southern states, there is not such a level of heating that you would find in the United States, right? So in the United States, you find the heating pretty much across the board. I think I never saw a single house in the United States with a heating infrastructure, right? And in Brazil, is actually the opposite, right? And heating is something that started developing in Brazil not long ago. So still nowadays, you're going to be surprised that you're going to go to a place, you're going to enter, a place of business, and the place is going to be, ice cold within the store, for instance, right? Or you go to visit a friend, and even inside the house, it's ice cold, right? So, this is different to me. But this is just like, of course, during a specific number of months in the year. And aside of that, I think that Porto Alegre is such a great destination, okay? But remember, Matt, like I was actually sharing about that, at the beginning of our live stream, maybe you could try different places out, because whenever you're planning from far away, you are planning based on a limited set of information points, okay? And there is nothing better than actually experiencing, like different areas to make up your mind, all right? And I understand many of you, I'm not talking about you in particular, but many of you are, conservative and would like to do something, very well organized over time, in a sense of, securing a place, maybe moving stuff, from another country to Brazil. But I think, you should factor in this need for you to try Brazil out, okay? Because super common, Matt, again, super common for clients, to pick a location, they go to that location. after a year and a half, they decide that that location is actually not their ideal location, and then they are going to have, a lot of friction, right? To move, like you're going to need to maybe, sell the house if you bought the property. You're going to need, to go through the whole moving process. Maybe you're going to need to buy something else. So it's a huge pain, I think, for everyone to move from point A to B. And because of that, if you move into Brazil, I typically recommend you that you don't rush yourself into getting, into trying to figure out a more longer term location, because you cannot do it, right? Like nobody can do it. That's the same thing for me whenever I'm going to a different, place. I always keep in mind that I don't know, even though you can, watch YouTube videos, you can talk to other people, there is nothing like being there and experiencing firsthand to figure things out. All right, man. So that would be my recommendation for you. Like, I think Porto Alegre is a great destination. I just recommend you to try out other things before settling for any place. All right. Flying Prince, quick question, sir. When applying a visa to Rio for the agro exhibition in April 2026, can the husband and wife in one single combined visa application, or will it have to be separate? Flying Prince, applications for visas, they are always individual, right? There is no such a thing as a single visa application. People, travel and immigrate as individuals, right? Even though they may be married, okay? Now, what you can ask for is like for a joint interview. Sometimes when you're booking like an interview, if that's your case, let's say if you are booking an interview, or if you need to have an interview with a Brazilian consulate, even if you pick like different time spots, I suggest you send an email to that particular consulate and say, listen, I got a spot in the morning, my wife got a spot in the afternoon, can we attend together the first spot? And typically they're going to say yes. And if the basis for your travel to Brazil is going to be common, I don't see any problem, with you guys explaining the agro exhibition. Maybe you or your wife are going to be the main participant. The other one is piggybacking on the trip, right? And you just explain that. Flying Prince, something I typically share here, the channel, Brazil nowadays is being very picky in terms of visa. They like to give visas to people with high purchase power, right? So it does not matter the country you are. If your country requires a visa to visit Brazil, be financially successful is an expectation from those consulates, even though they don't say so, right? And I'm sure that if someone would ask, like the head of Brazilian immigration, he would say, well, this guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But I'm talking from experience, right? And I can tell whenever someone, has a deep pocket in a country in which it's difficult to get a Brazilian visa, they're going to do well. If they're just run off the mill, it's going to be typically an uphill battle to get a visa. All right. So just a heads up. The immigration officers, they also like people who have been traveling around, right? Like, so if someone is saying, well, I'm going to go visit Brazil for vacation, and then they look at this person, they never been outside of their country of origin, that's going to sound like a bad match. They're going to say, well, this person is not really coming to visit, they're coming to stay, right? Now, if you've been to, I don't know, China, India, Japan, Europe, and so on, they look at it, all right, this person is a typical traveler, and I don't see a problem for this person to come to Brazil, right? So just some tips over there. Donna, that is a 27-hour drive for me. And like you said, flights are expensive. Yes, Donna, that's true. But 27-hour drive, yeah, for you, right? You probably drive like me, very safely, right? I get it, Donna. Thank you for sharing. Flying Prince, I ask because of the supporting documentations, such as bank statements, are from the husband, or we will have it to be two separate applications. Wife is housewife and doesn't work, but it's accompanying him. Yeah, so typically, if someone is like a housewife, they're gonna use financials from from the other spouse. All right, so that's not a problem, and typically you're gonna try to present those applications together, right? And so specifically for either if there is an interview, like you want to go together. If there is no interview, you could file like those separate applications. But typically in the application, you also mention that you're traveling with someone else, and then they should in theory be able to match the two applications. But it doesn't hurt. If you need to give them a heads up after the applications, you can send an email to the consulate, providing additional context if you feel like, right? All right, Donna, that's me down south, Jaguarão, the advantage of two countries. Yes, Donna. So Jaguarão, if I'm not mistaken, is also Rio Grande do Sul, right? Just like Matthew and Adrian are planning. Jaguarão is Rio Grande do Sul, correct, Donna? I'm asking you. You wrote here Jaguarão. I just want to make sure I remember correctly. Okay, and we are almost over with our time for today. I'm probably going to take an additional participation here, but a heads up to you guys. We have something special. This week we're going to have our first live stream on Sunday, right? And that's going to be the first of two live streams during the month of December. So this live stream is going to be on the 14th. And on Sundays, we meet a little bit later in the day. Instead of 12:30 Rio de Janeiro time, we typically meet at 3:30 Rio de Janeiro time. And this live stream is already scheduled in our YouTube channel. So just come over to the live stream area. You're gonna see the appointment for Sunday at 3:30. Click on notify me to make sure that you don't miss it, right? We're gonna be very pleased to see you over here. Justice League, hi there. Thank you for your amazing live sessions and advice. Thank you so much for your kind words, Justice League. That's important to me. All right, like it takes time and effort, right, to keep those things consistent over time. Particularly on Sundays, right? Like on Sundays, I'm typically with my family, and the first thing my wife asks in the morning is like, "Do you have a live stream today?" Right? And if there is no live stream, she's pretty happy because then I don't need to take a few hours off our schedule to be here and be with you guys. But I'm pleased to do so, and thank you again for your words. They are important to me. Okay, and last one, Justice League. I want to ask, if you incorporate a private company in Brazil and you don't have an embassy in your country, can you still do residency requirements online or through the agent in Brazil? Right, so you may be asking, Justice League, about the residency through investment in Brazil, right? Just to clarify, just by starting a company in Brazil, you don't get any special residency for that. But if you invest, as of today, a minimum of 500,000 reais, you can apply for residency based on investment in a company in Brazil, right? And typically you're gonna have two pathways, and that's something I think we could discuss better on Sunday. So I'm inviting you specifically to come back on Sunday so we can talk about it. but the typical pathways are going to be either through an embassy or a consulate abroad, if you need a visa to come over to Brazil, or if you are already allowed to come to Brazil, let's say you have a tourist visa, or if you can travel under a visa waiver like not US citizens, like UK citizens, then you could potentially apply in Brazil as well. But let's talk more about that on Sunday. Very interesting topic, right? And we do have a few cases here in the pipeline. In the past, we would be very resistant, right? We would say, listen, invest in a company to get residency, go elsewhere. Such a horrible idea, right? To start a business in Brazil with all the labor litigation that you're going to be facing down the line and so on. But what we are doing nowadays is kind of, just keeping a filter and identifying those who have, let's say, who have at least a chance of succeeding. If you have a chance of succeeding, if we can tell you have a chance, then we're going to be amenable to assist with the investment in a company. But I would say for most people, investment in a company in Brazil to secure residency is still a bad idea, all right? So we are more flexible nowadays, but we still have the same understanding, if you will. But that's an interesting topic that we can discuss more in our Sunday live stream. Thank you, all of you, for your participation. And I hope to see you again on Sunday, and wishing you a blessed rest of your day.